If your A1C is 5.9, your doctor probably told you you're fine. Your nerves don't agree. By the time your A1C hits the diabetes level at 6.5, the small fibers in your feet have already been dying off for years, not weeks. And here's what nobody tells you. The standard nerve test most doctors order, it can't even see this stage of damage. It's blind to it. So when you walk out of the office with burning feet, a normal nerve test, and a number that says pre-diabetes, and you're told your nerves aren't the problem, they actually are the problem. The lab numbers just are behind. My background is peripheral nerve surgery. I performed over 3,000 nerve procedures during my time operating. I don't operate anymore. Now I work with people online, people who have been told there's nothing they can do about their neuropathy. Today I want to answer a question I have every single week. At what A1C does nerve damage actually start? The honest answer changes everything about how you should be thinking about your numbers. Most people walk in asking, at what A1C does neuropathy start? That's actually the wrong question. The right question is, where on the glucose spectrum does damage actually begin? And that answer is a lot lower than what you've been told. So here's the deal with those A1C cutoffs, 5.7, 6.5. Those are administrative numbers. Someone picked them so they could standardize who's diagnosed. They don't mean anything biologically. They're not the line at where damage starts. They're just the line at where the paperwork starts. The original DCCT researchers actually said this. They called it a continuum. The risk goes up with glucose exposure. It's smooth and gradual. There's no safe number underneath. There's just less risk and more risk. So when you're sitting at an A1C of 6 with burning feet and you're told nothing's wrong, the lab's saying one thing and your nerves are saying something completely else. And honestly, your nerves have a lot longer track record than your lab cutoff does. Here's a number that should be on every pre-diabetic lab report, and it's not. A big population study published in Diabetes Care, they looked at people across the whole glucose spectrum. And what were the results? Polyneuropathy showed up in 13% of people with impaired glucose tolerance, 11% with impaired fasting glucose, compared to about 7% in people with totally normal glucose. So roughly 1 in 8 pre-diabetic adults already has a measurable nerve damage before they're diagnosed, before they're medicated, before anyone tells them it's even a thing. And it's not a switch that flips at 6.5, it's a slope. The damage climbs steadily as glucose climbs. And if you're in the pre-diabetic range, the question isn't whether your nerves are at risk, it's how much damage it's already there. Now, there's one specific study I want you to know about, came out in Neurology back in 2003. Researchers compared people with impaired glucose tolerance, that's the pre-diabetic range, to people with full-on diabetes. And they did skin biopsies on both groups. And the pre-diabetic patients had significantly fewer small nerve fibers, different pattern from the advanced diabetic group in diabetes. And it's the small unmyelinated fibers that go first, the ones that carry pain, temperature, that burning sensation. Those go first long before those bigger fibers do. So here's where it becomes interesting. Your nerves aren't just reacting to glucose, they're reacting to insulin. And that's the part most people don't know. Insulin's not just a glucose hormone, it's actually a nerve nutrient. It's what we call a neurotrophic factor. Your peripheral nervous system is covered by insulin receptors. They sit on the bodies that feed your sensory nerves. They keep the mitochondria running. They keep that energy flowing to your axons. So when you develop chronic insulin resistance, your nerves stop receiving that support, even if your blood sugar looks fine on paper. There's a 6-year study out of Korea that should change how you think about your A1C. Researchers followed type 2 diabetic patients for 6 years. Every single one had an A1C under 7. Those are good numbers, the kind your doctor would give you a high five for. They tracked nerve function the whole time. And here's what they found. The patients who had insulin resistance in the past, their nerves became worse over those 6 years, even with great A1C control. The insulin resistance kept hurting the nerves while the A1C looked perfect. So even if you're working on your A1C and ignoring your insulin resistance, you're not done. Your nerves still feel it. This is what some of us call metabolic continuum. Your insulin and your overall metabolism start hurting your nerves long before your A1C reflects any of it. By the time your A1C hits the diabetic range, the small fibers have usually been losing density for years already. If your nerve test came back normal, but you still feel burning, your nerve test missed something. The standard test most doctors order is called a nerve conduction study, an EMG for short. It's a great test for what it does, but here's the catch. It only measures large nerve fibers, those big fast ones with all the insulation around them. And in metabolic neuropathy, those aren't the fibers that go first. The fibers that go first are the small, tiny ones, carrying that burning, tingling temperature and all the autonomic stuff. The EMG can't see them. In one study, asymptomatic diabetic patients already had about 30% lower small nerve fibers than healthy controls with totally normal EMGs. With no symptoms, a normal EMG doesn't mean your nerves are fine. It means your big nerves are fine. That's not the same thing. So what should you actually be looking for? Burning, tingling, that electric or buzzing sensation. Allodynia, that's when your light touch hurts. Feels like you're walking on a cold floor when the floor isn't cold. Numbness in the toes that creeps up over time. And some people don't have any of that. They have autonomic stuff instead. Lightheaded when they stand up, slow digestion, sweating that's off. If any of that sounds familiar and your nerve test was normal, here's what to ask for. A skin biopsy, specifically one that measures intraepidermal nerve fiber density. That's the test that catches what the EMG misses. Most people have never even heard of it. Here's what I want you to take from this video. If your A1C is in the pre-diabetic range, your nerves aren't waiting around for you to hit that 6.5. The damage is already happening on that slope. But this is the important part. This is also the best window you'll ever have to do something about it. The reversibility is widest right here. It only narrows from this point on. The next video will answer the question I always have next. If I lower my A1C, will my neuropathy actually go away? The honest answer involves the stage you're in, the timeline, and what reverses versus what doesn't. I'll link it in the description when it's up. If you have any nerve symptoms while you're working on your numbness and you want to understand whether your metabolic picture is already affecting your nerves, I do a free 10-minute discovery call. The link is within the caption and it's at drfitznutrition.com. We'll go through your symptoms together with your labs and we'll see what the next best step is for you. Subscribe so you don't miss part 2 and drop a comment with your most recent A1C and what your doctor told you about your nerves. I read these and the patterns help me make better videos for you.